Welcome back, it's Professor Silva. Today we're going to do something that's probably one of my favorite things to do, which is expand storage and create a new RAID array. On the server we're working on right now, there's about 3 gigs left on about a 4 terabyte RAID-1 array. We're going to build out a brand new RAID-1 array with about 14 terabytes of storage. So let's figure out how. Alright guys, first things first, let's take a look at what we're working with, what we have. So in this server we've got 2 drives. One is the C drive, which is a 256 gig SSD RAID-1 array. This drive is mirrored, so it gives us approximately 225 gigabytes of actual usable storage. The secondary drive set that we have is a magnetic drive set, which each one has a 4 terabyte drive that gives us about 3.6 terabytes of usable space. Unfortunately, that disk only has around 9 gigs free as of right now, so time's of the essence. Let's build out this new RAID array. Okay, so what we're looking at here is actually super typical. We've got a server that's got 8 bays. When we originally purchased the server, we decided to get 8 bays because I figured we would need to expand at some point in the future. I didn't quite expect that to be this soon, but hey, at least we were thinking ahead on this one. So you can see over here that these are the 2 drives that are lighting up. These 2 drives are SATA drives, and these actually have the 256 gig SSDs. So these are the 2 drives here that I showed you before that appeared to be the C drive. These 2 drives here are in a RAID-1 array. These are the magnetic drives that are the 4 terabytes. These appear to be that 3.6 terabyte usable drive that I showed you guys just a second ago. Now, this is one thing I wanted to point out to you. Down here, these are 4 slots that are ready to accept a 2.5-inch hard drive, or 3.5-inch hard drive, excuse me. So these bays down here are the ones that will accept the new array that we're going to build. We're building out a new RAID-1 array, so we're just going to take 2 of these out. Now I'm not going to touch the top of this because this is a live production server and I really don't want any support calls. So what we're going to do is instead just work with the bottom half of this, and this is one of the things I want to show you. This is a Dell PowerEdge T640 server. On the top here, you can either remove the drives like this, right? Again, I'm not going to do it, but on the bottom you've actually got these little faceplates. The faceplates come off like this. You basically squeeze the bottom, pull out, and here you have it. It's basically the enclosure cap for this drive, right? And there's the little button I was pressing before that basically squeezes in, and then you take the little plate out like that. But that's really all that this is. There isn't too much more to this. So let's go ahead and we're going to pull out the second one as well. I just want to show you the third one. It's also empty. And the fourth one. This is a totally optional step. I like to dust this stuff off. Crap tends to build up in here. This is completely up to you guys. But let's go ahead and get those other drive caddies ready, and let's actually do the SATA install. Alright, so now I'm sitting next to the 2 new hard drives as well as the 2 new caddies. So first things first, we're going to open up this box here, which has got the actual caddies in it. So we'll open this up and we'll see this comes with basically three parts, so we had to order these separately. This is the full caddy that we're actually going to do the installation into, so it's going to be kind of cool. This is the second caddy, and then it's also going to come with this little bag of screws. I just want to bring this really close so you guys can see this. These screws are actually specialized screws that you'll need to use. They're specifically for hard drive enclosures. So just make sure that when you're ordering them, that you're ordering the right type of flat screws, otherwise the hard drives won't actually fit in. So we'll take this out here, and I just want to show you that the outside of this looks really, really similar to the enclosure that we had before. And actually, this is exactly how the drive is going to open and operate. So just pinch myself. These things are sharp. Anyway, so what you want to do here is you basically push this button up here, and that's going to fling open this lever here. And what that's going to do is, I don't know if you guys can see this really clearly or not here, but this little lever mechanism here is actually what pulls the drive caddy out of the slot. And these screws over here that are marked SATA, right? You guys can probably see that over here. That's a SATA, and there's another one SATA over here. That's going to line up with these hard drives. So let's go ahead and pull the hard drives out. So these are the 2 drives that we're using, marked fragile, which is pretty cool. You guys can see up there, these are 14 terabyte drives. So I'm going to put that one down there so I don't accidentally drop it. And then I'm going to pull out my tools to actually get this thing open. So I'm going to move this down onto the floor because we no longer need that. We've got our main drive right here. Just going to reposition the camera so you guys get a better view of what the heck I'm doing over here. So open with care. We will. And here we go. Now, it's not uncommon for drives to ship like this. This is basically in the bubble wrap. As you can kind of see through the wrap there, this is the Exos drive that we ordered. So I'm going to go ahead and unpack this. Okay, now important thing, I typically don't like to open these up until the last possible second. You can open them up beforehand, but I find it to be a little more helpful to keep it in the packaging as long as possible. But this basically, you can see right here, is our 14 terabyte drive, and it's basically ready to rock, so excited about this. One of two. Take out the second drive. So, here we go, got our two drives ready to go. I'm gonna unpack the second, and this is basically where the magic comes in, the fun part. What we're going to do is we're going to mount each one of these hard drives into the caddy, slide them in, and then use the software portion of this to configure the RAID, which is kind of cool, something I'll get to in just a second. Alright guys, I've gone ahead and put the camera as close as I could reasonably put it here to the drive enclosure bay so that you can see what's going on. Now again, we're not going to touch these, right? These are the ones on top, live drives, we're not going to do that. On the bottom, however, we are ready to rock. So, with this drive, the first thing you want to do, just pop this button here, right? We're going to pop that, swings open. And the next thing you're going to want to do is make sure you orient the drive the correct way when you put it in. You can just look at the other enclosures, make sure you see how they are. So just to pan up here real quick, you can see that the drives up there have the light on top and the gray part on bottom. So this is the first drive, and blowing it, clear a little bit of that dust. All right, slide it in, and at the last second here, this is where you got to be kind of firm because sometimes it takes a little bit of pressure to actually slide in. So I'm going to slide it in nice and firm, and then snap it closed, and you can see that that drive actually lights up. Meaning that the operating system is now recognizing the drive. Second thing you want to do, right? We've got the secondary drive here. So same thing. You can take this, pop it open. Okay. And now we are going to slide this drive in here, just like this. Okay. Now same thing. When you slide it in, you want to give it a nice firm push because over here there's a bit of metal, and it's spring-loaded, right, to keep that drive in there. So just want to give it a little nice firm push. And then just be sure it's seated in the back. And that's it for the physical installation. So let's go into the operating system now and take a closer look on how we can get this thing to logically configure and expand out. So just one quick point. Over here you can see this is where we had the previous drives. I had originally installed these into slots 4 and 5. This was 0, 1, 2, 3, and this was 4 and 5. Believe it or not, this server actually didn't recognize the drives in the first two slots, so I had to move them over here. After updating some of the controller firmware, it was able to recognize the drives over here. I could have relocated them back here, but you know what? At some point, these two drives that are magnetic are eventually going to be replaced with an array, possibly of 4 disks. Could be a RAID-5, and these two could eventually join that or serve as a hot spare. So I just decided to leave them in here. I just wanted to show you the final configuration actually ended up in bays 6 and 7. Alright guys, just wanted to break out one really important detail. We have to copy the files over, or more specifically, move the files over from
their old location to the new location. So I just want to take you through that briefly here. So if we go back to the main PC view here, we can see that here we've got our original drive, right? 81.6 gigs free of 3.63 terabytes. It's pretty full. This is the C drive. We moved some data off of that since we last spoke. And here's the storage drive, which basically is completely empty and ready to go. But I wanted to bring this really important detail to your attention. First and foremost, before you start, it's always super useful to understand exactly how much space you have. This is a tool called Tree Size Free. It's made by a company called Jamsoft. They're awesome. I really like their stuff, but they have a free tool. So here, for example, you can just scan the M drive, and then you can figure out exactly how much data is on each folder. Again, this is something you can do if you right-click and hit properties, but I just find this to be really, really useful, especially when you're trying to move data over and what you want to start with. And all right, so there's one folder here called Archon1, and this is where I wanted to focus the majority of our discussion around, and I'll show you why. So if I go here to this folder, right, Archon1, and I go to Properties, and I go to Security, you can see that there are some permissions here, and one of those permissions is the accounting folder, right, which you can see right here. So the accounting folder is added with explicit permissions, right? You can see the other ones here are grayed out because they're inherited, but this is an explicit permission addition. If I go back to the E drive here, let's say I just wanted to copy this data over, right? So I just do like a really simple copy. Okay, copy's done. I go in there, right? There's my little managed support agent. When I right-click and check the security, take a look. See, the accounting group is gone. So this is going to create a really, really, really big problem, especially if you go to share this and you don't have the right file permissions on it. Users will be complaining like crazy that they can't access their data. So what you really want is to copy over the file permissions as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete that folder off the new drive because I copied it here. Now Microsoft has a really nice article on this. It's here. I can put this URL in the comments, but basically this is how to copy a folder to another folder and retain its permissions, which is really pretty easy to do actually. You just have to use Xcopy with this series of switches. It's really important because the UI for Windows does not do this by default. I don't know why, but it just doesn't, and it will create big headaches for you when you reshare the data. So what we can do here is we can simply, I've already typed part of this command in here, so don't mind me if I just go back and edit this. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to choose, instead of the e-commerce packages, I'm going to call this Archon1, and then here, call this Archon1. Okay, that's it. We got the additional flags over here. More documentation is available on that on Microsoft's webpage. And let me go ahead and hit enter. You'll notice that it does prompt me, right? It's going to say, does this specify a file or a directory? Because it doesn't exist. This is a directory, so I'm going to press D for directory. And in this case, it's just copying one file, but really importantly, we got to go in and check those security permissions. So just one more time, if I go here to security, you see there's the accounting group, right, on the old folder. Go to the new group over here, right-click, go to properties, and then security, and now you can see the accounting group came over. So that's extremely cool. Okay, so now we're going to actually go ahead and move the share, and I want to show you, I'm actually going to deliberately break something here because I want to show you how easy it is to make a mistake and that we need to pay attention to copy this over. So if I right-click on this folder, go to Properties, and hit Sharing, you can see it's currently shared out, right, which is really nice. Now, if I click on Advanced Sharing, you see it says Share Name, and then if I hit Permissions, this shows me the permissions. So one thing to note is that these are not NTFS permissions, these are file share permissions. They're a bit different, and I can cover that in a separate video, but anyways, suffice to say that it is shared right now. Now, if I jump back to a user's workstation, which I wanted to show you here, so this is a user's workstation, right? You can easily see here, this is the folder, right, for Archon1, and it's got data inside of it, right? And you can see I can hit refresh a couple times. All right, so there's a refresh. You can see that there's other shares here. Now, if I jump back into the server, this is one thing I wanted to show you. If I just go like this, okay, and let's say I just move the share over. Now, remember before I demonstrated that the file folder permissions are going to be gone, right? The NTFS permissions. So you see the accounting group is now still gone. It only has the inherited permissions. But the worst part is this folder is no longer shared. So now if I go back to my client and I hit refresh, watch what happens. It's gone, right? I don't know why Windows doesn't give you any type of error here. I mean, I think it's a pretty big design issue if you move a shared folder like this and it just breaks connectivity. But anyway, the reason I wanted to share this with you is because I wanted you to note the share permissions prior to moving it. So now it's pretty easy, right? You just hit share, click share this folder. You got to hit permissions, right? And then you have to allow the permissions that you had before, otherwise they won't be there. Now you can hit OK, apply, OK, go, and refresh, right? So now if I jump back to the end user's workstation, refresh, there we go, and we're back again. Anyway, if you don't do that, the shares are going to break, so it's pretty important. I figured I would want to highlight it. So that's pretty much it. All you need to do from there is just set up a script to copy over all the rest of the files using the same switches that we have here as part of the Xcopy article that I shared earlier, and all of your data will move over. Just remember to reshare with the right permissions, and you will have a ton of happy users with lots of disk space.
All right, guys, hope this was helpful for you. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave me a comment below, and I will see you guys in the next video.